right, hey everybody, how y'all doing? So today's going to be a bit of a story about the greatest gift I was ever given, and how that gift was stolen from me, and how I'd like to get that gift back. And hopefully you guys can help me find the guitar that was stolen from me in the early 80s. And the guitar was a Gibson Les Paul Custom that my parents bought me back in 1977. And both my parents are now passed away. And I've always thought about the guitar, but since they're gone, I've thought about the guitar a lot more, because it's one thing that really connects me back to being a child and how much support and love that my parents gave me as a musician, and which I'm eternally and forever grateful for. So here's the story. I started playing guitar in 1976. I was consumed with guitar. I would play 6, 8, 10 hours a day, every day, never missed a day. I never missed a day for years, but especially for those first 6 months, I was consumed by it. And this didn't go unnoticed by my mom and dad. They were very supportive of all my siblings and I. If we really loved something and if we were really attached to it, they supported it fully, whatever it was. And it's one of the greatest attributes of my parents, how supportive they were in that. So I've been playing guitar for 6 months. My birthday was coming up in January, and I was taking guitar lessons for those 6 months from a great guitar teacher named Nick Canzona in Woodbridge, Virginia, which is about 20 miles outside of Washington, D.C. And back in the 70s, it was kind of, I wouldn't say remote, but it was kind of the sticks. It was just a bedroom community now, but back then there wasn't really much going on around there. A bunch of woods and some housing developments, older developments. Anyways, so there was no real music stores that sold really good, gear and stuff like that. We had to drive into near DC to find a good store. And we drove up in January, when my birthday is, and we drove up to Zavarilla's Music, which was a big deal. I mean, I was just turning 14, and I brought my cheap-ass guitar with me, which is like, I think I paid $25 for it. It was, just a terrible import guitar, but I was thrilled to have it. But it came with a really crappy vinyl gig bag. It offered no protection, and it was just really cheap. So I thought, well, my guitar, I need to get something to protect it, And so we go into Zavarilla's Music. And my dad was a military man for 22 years. He was in the Army. So he always instilled in his children to be mature and be able to deal with situations and learn how to handle things early on. So we walked right in the store, and it was a really kind of a spooky store. It was kind of shadowy, wasn't very big. There were, one main room and then a couple rooms off of it. But you go in the main room, and it was a kind of place where there were just guitar cases stacked on top of guitar cases, and things piled up with dust everywhere. And it was really the first cool music store I'd ever been into. And so my dad, of course, he says, well, step up to the counter and tell the man what you're looking for, son. And so I go up with my guitar. And I go to this guy, kind of a gruffy old guy behind the counter, and, what can I do for you, kid? And I'm like, well, excuse me, sir, it's my birthday, and I'd like to buy a good guitar case for my guitar. And he's like, well, let me see your guitar. So I pick it up and I put it up on the counter, and he starts laughing. And I'm kind of like the the Grinch That Stole Christmas, the dog that had the reindeers put on that were tied around his head. I just kind of drooped down like, oh my God, he's laughing at my guitar. This was the best guitar in the world as far as I was concerned. And because it was my guitar. And he goes, kid, I could sell you a case, but it'd be worth more than the guitar. So I'm like, oh, okay, thank you, sir. Thank you for your time. And I turn around, and my parents they're just watching the whole thing, and they're just going, well, hey, we just drove up 20 miles. We're not going back right now. We were only in here for like less than a minute. So my dad says, well, as long as we're here, why don't you just look around? And I'm like, okay, I'm thrilled. I'm surrounded by guitars. This is the greatest thing in the world to me. So the gruff guy goes, yeah, the cool guitars are in the back room. So I walk down this little narrow alleyway between amps and things that all, things that I'd never seen in real life before, Marshalls and Fenders, and only things I'd seen on like Don Kirshner's rock concert and TV shows and things like that. So I go in the back room. It's a small room. It's probably only 10 feet by 10 feet. Bunch of amps sitting around, used, new, a wall of guitars just circling around, 2 rows of them. And there's a salesman back there, and he goes, "You see anything you want to try?" And I look up, and I see a black Les Paul Custom. And I was like, that's like Peter Frampton's guitar from Frampton Comes Alive. And the guy goes, "Yeah, it's a Les Paul Custom. You want to play one?" I'm like, "Yeah, I want to play Peter Frampton's guitar." You got to understand, Frampton Comes Alive was a massive record. I was a huge Peter Frampton fan, and to be able to play a guitar like his for the first time, let alone just looking at him in pictures, was a thrill beyond belief. So he grabs a guitar, plugs me in an amp for the first time I'd ever plugged in a proper amp before, and I start playing, and I hear all this like whoosh, all this echoey, reverbed sound, but I didn't know what it was, and I go, "What is that?" He goes, "What? What's wrong?" I said, "No, what is that sound?" And he goes, "What?" I said, "That psh," and he goes, "Oh, that's reverb. You like reverb?" I love reverb, because at the time I didn't have an amplifier. I was plugging my guitar, my cheap-ass guitar, into my dad's reel-to-reel tape machine that we connected the 1/4-inch jack to a 1/8-inch mini jack to go into the mic input, and it was bone dry, and it sounded awful. But I had no perspective on anything at the time, so I thought it was great. And so now I'm plugging into a real amp with reverb, playing a Les Paul Custom, and I'm stunned at how amazing the sound of an electric guitar can truly be when you're plugged in good gear, or the proper gear, I should say. So I'm playing, I don't know, I'm just playing whatever. My head is buried in the guitar, and I don't know, 15, 20 minutes go by, and my dad comes over to me with my mom standing next to him, and he goes, "Okay, we got to get back home. Are you ready to go?" And I said, "Yeah, no problem." And I went to pick up hold the Les Paul Custom and give it back to the salesman, and my dad says, "What are you doing?" I'm saying, "Well, I need to give the man back his guitar." And I always get emotional telling the story. My dad had said, "No, that's your new guitar. And we just got it for you for your birthday. So let's get your new guitar. Let's get your case, the new Les Paul Gibson case that it came with, and let's go home. Happy birthday." And it's truly one of the greatest gift I've ever received. And the fact that my parents would splurge like that was not normal. We weren't a rich family. We were just, average family. And my parents never splurged on anything. They were Depression era parents, so they always learned to sacrifice and use stuff till it wore out and so forth. So to have them buy me a Les Paul Custom like that, sort of after just 20 minutes, was truly remarkable. And my parents, on the drive home, I was ecstatic. I opened the case up. It was purple inside. I told my parents I couldn't believe this. I was stunned. And they said, "Well, we know how hard you've been practicing. We see how hard you've been working. And we don't think this is some whim for you. We really think this is something you believe in. And we want to give you the opportunity to have a great guitar to improve your skills and enjoy playing even more." And I still, like I said, I still get caught up in the emotions of this. So fast forward, I get home, I'm freaking out. The guitar was like my best friend ever. I would polish it after every night of playing it, take all the fingerprints off, because it's a black Les Paul Custom, so fingerprints show up on everything. I'd wipe the gold plating down. It was remarkable for me to have that instrument. And I continued playing it for years and years and years. And fast forward a little bit now I had graduated high school, and I moved to San Francisco the day after high school. I graduated on a Friday night, loaded up the car on a Saturday, and traveled across country to San Francisco. And I started playing in the Bay Area, and I hooked up with a band with John Alderetti, or Juan Alderetti, who is the bass player for Racer X, and most recently with Marilyn Manson, and a bunch of other groups, and a drummer named Bill Escohier. And we had a trio, we had a power trio, where we rehearsed in a place in Novato, which is just north, over the Golden Gate Bridge, north of San Rafael, and then there's Novato, a small town. And we left our musical gear all set up in there because we rented that place month to month. Well, after a long weekend that we didn't go in for rehearsal, we finally showed up after a few days, and come to find out that somebody had broken into the rehearsal room. They had dropped in through a skylight, cracked the skylight, dropped in, stole all my gear, including the Les Paul Custom. And I was devastated, completely devastated. I had lost a Marshall Super Tremolo 100 watt, a Plexi, a late 60s Plexi, my late 60s, early 70s Telecaster, Echoplex, and some other cool stuff. But the Les Paul was the one that really, really stung, and still does. And so here's the deal about the guitar. Still to this day, from all the polishing and cleaning up, I remember the serial number on the back of the headstock impressed into the wood, 491498. So 491498. It was a factory second, and if I recall, it had a number 2 stamped into the back of the wood as well, and the finish was applied over it, so it was embossed under the finish. There was no decal, and so that makes it about a 74 guitar. So that means the guitar had been sitting in that store for a while before my parents bought it. For $450 is what they paid for the guitar. And at this time that the guitar had been stolen, I did some modifications to it. I had it refretted with some large jumbo frets, and I had a DiMarzio Super Distortion in the neck pickup, and in the bridge pickup, I was in this guitar contest called the Guitar Grudge Match that Mike Varney put on, and part of the winnings of that was to win a couple custom wound pickups from Steve Blucher at DiMarzio Pickups. So I had an X2N style pickup. It wasn't X2N, it was a DiMarzio styled X2N where it had the 2 blades, but it was a zebra, a black and a cream coil, and it was low output. But I wanted the blades in it, so when I bent the string, the bend didn't fade out because the magnetic field was holding onto the bend better. I also had, between the 2 volume controls, I put in a coil tap switch. So I drilled a hole, and there was a crack, a finish crack, which is probably why it was a factory second, because Gibson would stamp guitars number 2 if they had cosmetic issues on them. And this one, as I mentioned, was a factory second. And there was a finish crack underneath the low E string between the 2 pickup bezels, because those guitars had multiple piece tops, and I think it was just a crack along the finish. I'm hoping somebody has my guitar, and I'm hoping that person will sell me back the guitar at market value. I have a police report on the guitar being stolen, but it's been so many years that it's not about trying to find who stole the guitar anymore. It's about just getting the guitar back. If any of y'all know somebody with a Les Paul Custom, if you could just look on the back of the headstock, 491498 serial number, a number 2 for factory second, and maybe this guitar will reappear, and maybe a little bit of my parents can come back to me, and a lot of my soul and heart can come back to me as well with getting that guitar back. All right, so thank you guys very much, and I hope everybody's well, and I'll talk to y'all later. Okay, bye.